Press Corps. Here at the Ministry of Information, Cultural Affairs and Tourism, regular press briefing. The Chief Administrator of the Ministry of Information, Cultural Affairs and Tourism is Honorable Matthew Pia. Mr. Pia is the official spokesperson of the government. I'd like to invite him to the national podium where he will interview our guests and make his introductory comments. Mr. Pia.
Good afternoon to all of you members of the press. I'm pleased to have here today at the Charles Leon Hall the Honorable Minister of Education, Dr. Jaso Njala. And interestingly, maybe as a way of showing women's solidarity, the President's advisor on political affairs, Madam Dala Kopo, is also here. First time having a presidential advisor at our press briefing. I also realized that the hall is a little bit more packed. Not too far from what happened when President Waka was here days ago. So I want to thank all of you for coming to our regular press briefing. You know, we got to ensure that people stop lying. You all remember a few weeks back when a number of entities launched a sustained campaign that the government of Liberia was granting something they called compassionate leave to former Justice Gloria Scott. And despite all efforts to clarify that nothing of such was happening, some of the institutions involved were still pushing forward the line. Well, for your information today, the full bench of the Supreme Court is hearing the appeal from the defense lawyers representing Councillor Scott. At the end of that exercise, the full bench of the Supreme Court will make a determination on that case, which will close that chapter because the Supreme Court is the final arbiter of justice. So whether they will uphold the lower court's decision or nullify it is what we see as a result of the intervention from the Supreme Court. What that means is that this matter will be brought to closure within the context of the law, contrary to what the naysayers were pushing, that the government was granting compassionate leave to Justice Scott. We are closely getting to the date of celebrating our 177th independence anniversary, and some decisions toward the independence celebration are already taken. I'd like to inform you that first and foremost, we have chosen the national orator for this year's celebration. That orator is Dr. Rotel Nije Pili, an assistant professor for international, social, and public policy at the London School of Economics and Political Science in the United Kingdom. She comes with over 20 years of combined personal and professional experience in academia, the media, public sector. She has worked across a broad range of fields, supporting universities, media institutions, governments, multilateral and regional, as well as non-governmental and community-based organizations in Africa, Europe, and North America. Her core areas of research and policy expertise include the political economy of development, migration, conflict, post-war recovery, and governance in Africa. Dr. Pele has practitioner-based proficiency in policy design and analysis, qualitative research, capacity development, program management, report and grant writing, journalism, and strategic communication. Dr. Pele is a highly educated native of Liberia and a Mo Ibrahim Foundation scholar. She holds a PhD in Development Studies from the School of Oriental and African Studies of the University of London, an MSc in African Studies from the University of Oxford in the United Kingdom, and double bachelor in African Studies and English Literature from Howard University in Washington, D.C., the United States of America. We have copies of her resume to enable you see the full extent of who our national orator is. Of course, there are other events lined up for the celebrations. Beginning Thursday at 7 p.m., there will be the Golden Image Awards held at the Monrovia, to be held at the Monrovia City Hall. On Friday the 19th, we have a Thanksgiving and intercessory prayer service for the Muslim religion, and it will take place at the 17th Street Mosque in Sinker. That same day at 4 p.m., there will be an investiture ceremony at the Ellen Johnson Selling Ministerial Complex in Bogota. On Saturday will be Sports Day at the Samuel Kayendo Sports Complex. On Sunday, July 21st, Thanksgiving and intercessory service for Christians will take place at the Liberty Christian Center in Johnsonville, Monrovia. Friday, July 26th, at 6 a.m. will be the hosting of the national flag at the Barclay Training Center. The honors of the national colors will take place. A parade involving military and paramilitary troops will also take place there. And by 11 a.m., the official ceremonies in observance of the 177th Independence Anniversary will take place at the Centennial Memorial Pavilion in Monrovia. On Saturday, the 27th, and interestingly, this day will be my birthday, will be Children's Socialization Day, organized by the Office of the First Lady in the Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Protection in all 15 counties of Liberia. Over the course of last week, senior officials of government led by the Minister of Justice and Attorney General, Councillor N. Oxford 12, have been engaging with the management of Sarah River Corporation. The engagements came in the aftermath of the violent action that took place at the plantation late last month. We regrettably inform you that the company insists on permanent closure and they've started paying off employees. This is what happens when people choose violence over peaceful engagement and dialogue. The government of Liberia is continuously appealing to the company to reconsider its decision to close and exit, and will continue to do so. But as of now, and based on their current decision, we can say that more than 800 jobs may go. Medical services being provided by the entity will also disappear. And our kids who are supposed to be schooling using the educational facilities of the company will not have the opportunity. Most critically, those who have enjoyed shelter provided by the company may not have them anymore. So we should ask ourselves, what have we gained by executing the violent actions that took place at the plantation? Government will continue to do what it can to help move the country forward, but the people themselves are very critical in every effort we will make to transform the country. When we have problems, we've got to be engaging, we've got to be peaceful. We fought a war here that killed, according to some statistics, over 250,000 persons. What did we get from it? Why are we not graduating from this constant act of violence? Why are we always taking the laws into our own hands? And in the end, we have fed ourselves and the country. What the government has done, in addition to just engaging the management of Sarah, is that the government has been doing a thorough investigation of what took place there following the arrest of some of the people who were suspected of being actors. There's a preliminary funding by the Joint Security, which worked in concert with the court in Wieland. And some 88 individuals have been charged by the magisterial court. These people include a Nigerian national who were all arrested and detained. Sorry, not 88, 8 persons. So the individual charged and who will be sent to court are Joseph Topa, Anthony Williams, Fayad Moses, Kemon Leo, James Saki Bondo, Mary Boyman, who is the leader of the Workers Union, Lawrence Ngongwa, the Secretary General of the Workers Union, and Abraham Okoro, who is the Nigerian national. They have been charged with arson, armed robbery, theft of property, burglary, terroristic threat, rioting, criminal conspiracy, criminal attempt to commit murder, and criminal facilitation. We witnessed what was a security breach at the Rabat International Airport. Again, we're back in the same vicious cycle. We want to portray our country as a place that is dangerous. The president has an agenda that has tourism as a major pillar. And I have emphasized over and over that tourists will not come to a lawless country. The airport is not used only by Liberians. There are visitors from other countries passing through the airport. On the day of the arrival of the former president, we have been briefed that a crowd made their way to the airport, chanting outside the airport that they would burn down the terminal if they were not allowed into the terminal. Because of the extent of the threat, personnel of the armed forces of Liberia who are deployed at the exit point of the airport, mainly because of the drug situation that was going on, the authorities were constrained to have them deployed at the point of entry. And the very hostile crowd confronted them. Additional troops, and in this case, police PSU, were invited, and they were able to ensure that none of those who were trying to make their way into the terminal did so. And they were able to ensure also that their threat to burn down the terminal, if not allowed into the terminal building, also did not happen. We are briefed also that a few officials of the past administration were processed and allowed into the terminal and onto the airspace. There was a concern that even though they were taken there by a bus and they were to be removed by a bus, two of those who enjoyed that privilege refused to wait for the bus and walked onto the terminal, a breach of the standards set aside by international aviation authorities. Those who were checking in that day to go through Kenya Airways found it difficult to pass through the entry to go check in because the very unruly crowd was moving about and chanting slogans and threatening to burn the airport. Yet, we want the country to progress. Who does that? So these individuals assembled at the airport because the former president was coming. The government wants to encourage the president to control his people. If you were president yesterday and you are that president anymore, does that mean you should have your followers doing things that will undermine the security of the country, undermine the progress we want to make as a country? Governance is everybody's business. As a former leader, you play a very important role in keeping the country stable and moving forward. You cannot have people on your watch creating the kind of problem we witness at our own international airport. Their action and behavior at the airport is totally unacceptable. And the government will not countenance the continuation of such behavior. We heard something from the Liberia Council of Churches. It is a good thing for the church to speak out. We know that in the immediate past, every serious organization got quiet, whether they were civil society organizations, religious groups. They were not courageous enough to speak to the ills of society. We take it as an achievement that we have created an environment where voices that were lost yesterday cannot be heard. Fair enough. The only thing we can say in addition to that is, when you speak, what you say should be based on facts. And two, just as you can see with your eyes on what you think is happening with government, the same eyes should be able to see all of the other excesses in society, including those committed by your own people. Have we not seen pastors go live on radio and telling people they will die from Goa and other things? We didn't see it. What did the Council of Churches say about that? Maybe somebody here heard it. I didn't hear anything. I remember just in the past when the former president was here, a very renowned bishop said people would die if they criticized the president. We didn't hear from the Council of Churches. So you cannot have your cake and eat it. Be holistic in your concerns about the society. And in saying that, we want to say that the pastor who had that broadcast runs a radio station based on permit from the Ministry of Information. The permit was granted to him based on his request of the kind of programming he intends to do. And we believe having a live show threatening that people will die, people will have Goa because they criticize you, was contrary to the purpose for which we gave him the permit. So we took it upon ourselves to invite the bishop here at the Ministry of Information. He has that cooperated. Mr. President of the Council of Churches, this is to formally say to you that someone who belongs to your constituents is not being loyal about it. You got to intervene, because if you don't, and if they don't honor the invitation that was extended by the Ministry of Information, will revoke the license of the radio station to operate. This place will not be allowed to be lawless. There is a government in charge, and the government will do what is required of a government. We just noticed that even the bishop's radio station has not been in compliance with the registration requirements since 2020. But this is supposed to be a church that preaches the doctrine of giving to Caesar what is Caesar and unto Christ what is Christ. Having said that, it is now my pleasure to invite the Honorable Minister of Education, who will now address the Minister.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the press, esteemed guests. It is an honor to be here in this historic hall with you this afternoon. Please have your seats. We firstly want to thank His Excellency, our President, President Joseph Numa Bakai, for the opportunity to serve our nation. And also extend thanks to the Minister of Information, Culture, and Tourism, in person of Minister Jelani Pia, and his team for providing us this platform and the opportunity to share updates with the country regarding the Ministry of Education's operations. So with me today is my entire senior management team, in person of, if you'll please introduce yourselves quickly.
I'm a master of Administration.
And I'm Dr. Samuel Toole, Deputy Minister for Planning, Research, and Development.
And with us also, for the sake of time, is all of the assistant ministers that fall under the various departments and bureaus here with us today. So in the spirit of accountability, transparency, and the vision of His Excellency, President Joseph Mimokwakai, the Ministry of Education is poised to ensure that our education system is revitalized. While our weekly programming on Wednesdays, Ministry of Education at midweek, and on Sundays, Conversation with the Ministry of Education, serve as mechanisms through which we engage with citizens and share valuable information from the ministry. It is, however, important to leverage media opportunities to continue to enhance the ministry's visibility and public knowledge of the ministry's operations. So one may ask, what's the mission of the Ministry of Education? The Ministry of Education is mandated to provide quality education for all and prepare future leaders who are capable of handling the task of nation building, protecting our national heritage, and enhancing the socio-economic growth and development for the sustenance of the Liberian state. Based on that mandate and the unrest agenda, there are key goals that we must work to achieve. One, which is stipulated under the unrest agenda, the Human Development Pillar 3, is strengthen the national education system for improved education outcomes across early childhood education, primary, secondary, and tertiary education. Diversify and promote technical and vocational education training, and improve education systems and governance. With that, the ministry priorities are centered on the following activities: girls and inclusive education, teachers and administrators upgrading, expansion of TVET programs, monitoring and supervision, infrastructure, and school feeding. It will interest you now for me to highlight the state of affairs we inherited upon taking office. We inherited scholarship arrears for international and domestic beneficiaries, unsettled WAEC and WAS areas for testing and membership, delayed and abandoned school construction projects by contractors, poor public school infrastructure, inadequate support to schools for operations, a massive wage bill that covers 15,435 employees, of which 3,640 are females and 11,795 are males. Of that number, 13,001 are payroll teachers, of whom 2,716 are females and 10,285 are males. Insufficient qualified teaching workforce, of which 35% are credentialed at the ECE level, 45% credentialed at the primary level, 31% credentialed at the junior high level, and 26% credentialed at the senior high level. These numbers pose serious risk to quality education. We also inherited insufficient assets in terms of tools for work, computers, vehicles, office equipment, office furniture, and salary disparity. Nevertheless, we have started strong, and this government has made significant strides. Through the 3 departments within the Ministry of Education, we've been able to achieve the following. Of the $2 million that was owed in scholarship arrears, $1 million was approved, of which $579,119 for international scholarship arrears for July 2023 to June 2024 has been paid. And of the $420,881 remaining for local scholarships, $211,153 has been paid. We've conducted a county assessment tour in 14 of our 15 counties to assess the status of the education delivery service. In collaboration with the Civil Service Agency, we've completed the head count of staff at the central office. We've strengthened the scholarship, both local and international application review and selection process to ensure transparency and merit-based selection. And this process has yielded an 8,546 cost savings to the government. Headcount completed for bilateral scholarship students for Morocco and China. We finalized the 2024-2025 academic calendar, for which is scheduled for dissemination digitally in the shortest possible time, with printed copies to follow for distribution at schools free of charge. MOE has also signed a project agreement with UNFPA to implement and enhance the integration of sexual and reproductive health rights prevention and response to gender-based violence and harmful practices in our schools. We've also planned an enrollment drive partnering with UNICEF and other partners. The planned launch for this enrollment drive is August 2nd, 2024, targeting counties with low school enrollment and out-of-school children. We also support, as an implementing partner, the Digital Transformation Initiative, the President's Initiative for the 10,000 youth. We have planned our education officer vetting and placement exercise, which will commence this July. And we've drafted a 3-year multi-sectorial operational plan and aligned with the current education sector plan for 3 years with focus on key deliverables. We've revised the school quality assessment and data collection tool for our annual school census. As you may be aware, the last school census was conducted in 2021. We've also distributed 1,400 talking pens and audiobooks to 523 public schools in the 6 GPE counties of intervention. The Ministry of Education has also successfully developed a secure certification and validation system. This innovative system, when fully rolled out, will serve as a comprehensive repository for trained teachers and is designed to produce and reprint digital certifications. It is a significant step forward in workforce reform and is expected to ensure a more efficient use of limited resources allocated for payroll and teacher education budgets. We conducted capacity development training for our central office staff, mostly around HR activity. We're ensuring the completion and dedication of 3 model schools being constructed in Bong County, Magibi County, and Nimba County with funding from the iRise World Bank project. In collaboration with Ministry of Health, we've also been supported by Site Saver and implemented school health integration program in 5 counties, Bong, Grand Cru, Maryland, Nimba, and Sino, benefiting teachers, students, and the community around site issues and other health-related issues. We've completed and dedicated Tibet centers along with our EU partners in Hopper and Zwedru. We've also made available 156 selected public schools to receive C3 microcloud learning management system. As we speak, completed installation of the solar power panels have been completed at 73 out of 156 schools supported by the IRAS project. And those 156 schools are around the entire country and are nationwide. So if I can highlight some of the county assessment findings. What we found in the field as we toured the 14 counties were poor educational infrastructure and overcrowded classrooms, acute shortage of trained teachers in basic and secondary education, high teacher absenteeism, high number of volunteer teachers, inadequate seating and wash facilities, ineffective lesson plans to guide instruction, high overage student population and placement mismatch, high number of out-of-school children, poor learning outcomes, especially grade-appropriate literacy and numeracy skills, arbitrary transfers of teachers and administrators without due process, minimal to non-existent teacher accommodation, mostly in our rural areas, poor data collection at the school level, ineffective school management, chronic inefficiencies in the use of available educational resources, abandoned and delayed school construction projects by contractors. So that encapsulates the findings of our 14 counted tour nationwide. We still have Montserrat yet to conclude, and that their results will form our final report that we will be submitting to the needed entities and personalities. So one may ask, how will these findings now impact policy, practice, and implementation? One is accountability. We must tighten our fiscal operations to ensure adequate disbursements and use of public funds. We are introducing a biometric ID cards and electronic signing system. We will enforce the MOE policy on registration fees, graduation exercise, and gala day celebrations. Contractors who have not honored their side of the contract with either incomplete buildings or buildings not meeting specifications or specific timelines will be held accountable. The next thing that these findings will impact is access to quality education and improved learning outcomes. We will strengthen our public-private partnership, which is by law, one that we must focus on to improve our learning outcomes and teachers' training. We'll improve our school management, giving our school administrators the proper training to be able to manage and administrate their schools. We will commence our volunteer teachers' profiling and assessing of their competence and readiness for payroll transition. We have appropriate pedagogical content and content-based specialization. That is something that we saw lacking when we were in the field. We'll deploy guidance counselors in public senior secondary schools for improved retention and completion of girls in schools. And this is specifically important to the girls and inclusive education priority of the ministry. And that is to also change our recruitment strategy for not only recruiting guidance counselors, but also teachers and administrators. Currently, we recruit in Montserrat and place them in the counties. And what we have found is folks do not remain in the counties that they are assigned. So we must look at that strategy and change course. We also want to work to reducing classroom overcrowding that we saw with the construction and extension and renovation of schools. Key to the findings and impact is monitoring and supervision. For that is the setting up of an inspectorate regime to improve M&E. We'll change the mechanism for registration fee payment and ensure collected funds go directly to support counties, districts, and school level operations. The permit application process and issuance will now include field assessment to ensure physical structures of schools existing with the requisite capacity to provide quality education services. We will enforce the completion of performance appraisals as expected through the civil service. In terms of funding, we have to seek additional investments in education. Our current ESP for 2022-2023 to 2026-2027 is casted at $967 million. The approved fiscal budget for the sector is $111,329,481, which belongs to the sector. Of that, $48,498,456 is the ministry's budget, of which 80 to 85% is recurring expenditures. So you can clearly see there, we need to really galvanize to ensure investment in our sector if we must achieve these milestones and get and yield the learning outcomes that we so desire. So there are currently, one can say, $111 million is significant investment in education, both from GOL and from our development partners. But more is needed. So in that regard, we need to expand donor coverage to mitigate gaps within our education sector plan and optimize investments through coordination to ensure an unfragmented approach to education service and support delivery services. What are the planned next steps for the ministry? The planned next steps is to hold our joint education sector review, looking at the reports from the field, and discussing and dialoguing with our education stakeholders and the rollout of our operational plan. We'll commence the annual school census, which we will develop and redesign teacher workforce recruitment strategy, as I spoke of earlier. We will activate our National Youth Service. We'll develop a standardized accelerated learning curriculum. What we're finding is because we have a lot of out-of-school youth, there are partners who are delivering accelerated learning programs across the country. However, we do not have a standardized curriculum to provide that service. So it's critically important that we do that. We'll also complete counter-level payroll headcount audit in collaboration with CSA, which is currently ongoing. And hopefully this exercise will free the fiscal space to allow for new teacher transitions. We will complete an overhaul of the school permitting and accreditation process and organize a donor conference to seek new funding to support the funding gap in operationalizing the sector plan and secure additional investments in education. Currently, our donor interventions, we have the Improving Results in Secondary Education, the IRAS project, of which I spoke about, the 156 schools that are benefiting, and the construction of the 3 model schools that are being constructed, amongst other things, with the provision of textbooks that they've provided across 5 subjects. With another donor intervention currently is the EU support to TVET with the construction of TVET centers around the country. UNICEF rolling work plan in support of MOE's priorities, the system capacity grants and system transformation grants being supported by GPE and managed by the World Bank and other partners. We also have the Excellence in Learning in Liberia project, the Excel project. That's a new project, hopefully to commence in 2025. We're in the development stage currently, and that is due in November to the Global Partners for Education. The outline for that has been submitted to GPE, and we're waiting for a response to move to the next step of that activity. The Liberia Foundation Skills Activity, the LFSA, is a USAID project which aims to increase the percentage of Liberian children who complete primary school and meets the GOL learning standards. That project is being executed in Bong, Grampasa, Lofa, Margibi, Montserrado, and Nimba. And the target for that program, that project, is 120,000 primary grade students. We also have the USAID test, the Transforming Education Sector for Teachers and Students in Liberia. And that aim is for teacher training and capacity building of teachers and instructors. We also have the Education System Strengthening, the ESA USAID funded project, which focuses on upgrades to the Education Management Information System. I can't stress this particular activity enough. If we are not data-driven in our decision-making and implementation, we're just running amok. And at the end of the day, we don't see impact because we're not planning and delivering against what the data is telling us. All of our data, all of our activities that we implement must be data informed. And so this is a critical piece that has been provided to the ministry and the government. Lastly, school feeding is another donor intervention currently been provided by the World Food Program, Mary's Meals, and Save the Children. We just concluded the Liberian Learning Foundation project, which focused on early childhood education, construction around the country, and the provision of textbooks and outfitting for those schools. So to conclude, to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and Vision 2030, we must invest in our teachers, administrators, students, schools, and institutions to increase access to education and improve the quality of teaching and learning. We are all responsible for the education of our children as parents, guardians, communities, and government. This government, under the leadership of His Excellency Joseph Boakai, has placed a premium on education through his unrest agenda. And we, as his lieutenants, are making every effort to solicit the right financing and develop appropriate strategies and policies to transform our education sector. Thank you.
So, before you line up and ask the minister your questions, I just wanted to have everyone informed through this platform that MiCAT, one of the current team, will continue to find very innovative and practical ways to get government information out to the population. One of the things we've done, we try to copy after groups like the Daily Graphic in Ghana by ensuring that we have a government newspaper that is very visible. We've been doing that. I'm sure many of you have seen the New Liberia newspaper. This is how it looks like. This paper is up 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. For the first time in the history of MiCAT, we've also added to the newspaper what we call the New Liberia magazine. We will produce this magazine every quarter. And both the newspaper and the magazine are not for sale. They are free. We send them to various places, higher institutions of learning, different entities of government, international organizations, just civil society groupings, so that people know what their government is doing. All that we expect from government actors, send the paper and the magazines are free, is to advertise, Madam Minister, President Advisor, to advertise in the magazine, in the paper. That's the only way we continue to produce, because there is no budgetary appropriation for what we do. Everything we do here so far, all our innovation, the very hard that you're sitting for some of you people who've been here for the first time, you would not have felt good sitting here in the last maybe 4 months. Government officials who came here for the press conference, all the media people are witnesses. You'll be sweating profusely, you will see leakages and all of that. And we'll be making intervention without any direct support from government. Beginning tomorrow, the entire roof you see on the building will be removed and we'll re-roof the building. But we also want to know that the government has approved funding to renovate the entire building so that when you come here, the face that you see is what resembles the country. Here we have the BBC and other international media entities that do come here. And I'm sure it's not a pleasurable thing to see the building as it is. Nasty, dirty, old, dilapidated. So we've been focused and very resolved in changing the situation and gradually we're making progress. So I just wanted to highlight some of these things before we start taking the questions.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Jala. So we're going to go the same way we usually do it. 4 questions at a time, and the minister will take notes, and then she will come up with the response.
Please introduce yourself. The institution you report for.
Thank you so much. My name is Maurice Olati, and I report for OPF. Thank you, Minister Jala, for your deliberation. But my concern has to do with, it's going to Minister Pia anyway. Thank you so much, Minister Pia, for... No, other guys coming. Oh. So my 2 concerns are, first of all, do you care to tell us, because many of the Liberian people are out there, sometimes some of us who alone do a lot better, to find bosses, and it's sometimes very difficult. So I want to know exactly how far will they in the arrangement of the bosses. And secondly, Minister. So, Minister, you are a government spokesperson. Thank you so much. And the second one is, this government came to power on the mantle of transparency and accountability. And you, as a minister, the last time you stood here and you told us that you are going to declare us. Do you care to tell us whether you are declared as?
More than 3 months ago. More than 3 months ago.
Dear colleagues, in the interest of time, there are a universe of issues that happen in the country. If you have other issues that are not addressed at the press conference, our doors are open. You can come and ask the minister anytime. For the sake of this press conference, let's restrict our questions to the issues that are being discussed here at the conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jara. My name is Strobon Flamma, and I report for Spoon FM. Thank you for your deliberation. But I did not hear you mention anything about TVET education. You care to tell us? And as we approach September, schools across the country will be resuming, they'll be opening, and parents are concerned about the hike in school fees by private school institutions. You care to tell us, is there any mechanism that you're putting in place to ensure that this consistent hike in school fees by private school owners, does not exist or can be minimized? And to our minister, thank you. Looking directly at me now. But there is no law. There is no law on the book that permits the government to prosecute religious leaders when they curse their members or when people throw African sign at people and they die. So on what basis you are inviting the men of God here at the Ministry of Information to question him why he had to send Goa on people?
Thank you. My name is Steven Ramos, and I report for Joy FM. Basically, my question is to the Education Minister. Minister, we are concerned. Throughout your deliberation, you did not speak much on tertiary education. We are aware that across the country, there are community colleges in various counties. And these community colleges, many of them are at an associate degree level. So that also gives the opportunity to students, even from those rural counties coming to Monrovia, only to attend the only state-run university, the University of Liberia. So are you care to tell us what mechanisms are you putting in place to make sure that some of these colleges are developed to BSc or maybe beyond that level to enable those who are residing in other part of Liberia can obtain the quality education is spoken about. And again, the University of Liberia has also been an issue of concern in the education sector. What are your plans in making sure that things at that university can be addressed amicably? Thank you.
Thank you so much. So my name is James N. Bala, and I report for Radio Joy Africa in Miami County. Madam Jara, thank you so much, Minister, for the time spent with us here. My concern has been drawn to the children in the streets with blind parents. My concern has been drawn to children in the communities across Liberia without going to school. My concern has been drawn to various government institutions where we talk about K1, K2. Some of these government institutions across the country do not have the ABC fundamental of education. They don't have the K1, they don't have the K2. Thus, the compulsory educations that were introduced by previous government still exists on the Ministry of Education. That's my concern. The next one has to do with the issue that has to do with the introduction of mobile money. We learned that the past government was asking through the Ministry of Education to pay money that is collected from schools across the country on a mobile money. How true is that information, and on who accounts that mobile money has been opened and operating across this country? Thank you.
So the minister will answer the first four questions.
Okay, thank you. Choma from Spoon, you asked about TVET education. I think in my deliberations, I spoke extensively about TVET education and the support that we've received from the EU. 2 centers are open, and they're moving across the country in that regard to support the running and operations of these schools. They've also funded instructors to get trained, whether locally, regionally, and internationally. And those teachers are here, and some of them have been deployed to ensure the smooth running of our TVET institutions. You asked about private school mechanisms for addressing the exorbitant private school fees. Right now, we are looking at the ministry at first assessing the fees across schools, because the idea is people shouldn't just arbitrarily raise fees without having the capacity and the infrastructure for delivering education services. So in my deliberations, I talked about the enforcement of the MOE policy regarding issues around fees and registration. Stephen Roberts from Joy FM. You asked about tertiary education and not hearing much about that. If you heard the presentation with the focus of the unrest agenda, focus to improving learning outcomes in tertiary education is one of them. So whilst you didn't hear specifics in that regard, that is something that's certainly highlighted for our activity. You also asked about the community college. One thing I want to stress and that we consider is sometimes we identify needs as a means to an end, but we really need to take stock of why community colleges were even constructed and are now available in the nation. We know the needs of educating our nationals. We know the expansion and the number of students that apply to the University of Liberia. And some of these students complete associate degree programs and transfer. So yes, there's a need to expand some more services at the community college level, but we can't just do it randomly. We have to look at the data. We have to understand the programming that supports economic development, for which we need to include in our curriculums that we offer, that we offer within our community college establishments and institutions. You spoke about UL and what am I doing in terms of addressing some of the challenges that are there. By my position, I'm ex officio on the board at the University of Liberia. And if you follow what's been obtaining with all of the activities that have transpired there, we have worked seriously with the interim management team there to ensure we restore calm under the leadership of the board chair, Honorable Batikwa, and the direction of His Excellency. And with that, there's several activities that we need to complete prior to the 4 months of the interim management team jurisdiction for their activity that is then assigned to do. So that is addressing infrastructure issues, is also addressing transportation issues at the institution, issues around salary and promotion and tenure. So those are areas that collaboratively working with the board, we're looking to address currently as we move forward to securing the next president of the university. James from Radio Joy Africa, I believe. Concern is children in the streets. We have been engaged with Ministry of Gender on a proposal to address this particular issue, and information regarding that activity will be forthcoming. A proposal has been developed and shared with the ministry, emanating from the Ministry of Gender. The issue with the compulsory education, we are still maintaining that compulsory education. This is why we are also beginning our enrollment drive to conscientize communities and counties and districts of the importance of sending their children to school and making sure we have incentives for coming out and sharing information with families and stressing the importance of our kids going to school. You question also, or had concern also about the mobile money payments and under who it counts. Upon taking office, it was revealed that yes, school fees or registration fees were collected at the school level and then transferred by mobile money to the ministry with the intention that a certain percentage goes back to the school for operations. But what I got was certain times that did not occur. As I indicated in my deliberations, we're looking at a new mechanism and to ensure that the monies that is collected stay in the school so that it'll help the school administrators to properly run the school. That we don't need a teacher or principal or an administrator to wait on Ministry of Education central office to buy a piece of chalk. So these are mechanisms that we're looking to employ so that one, there's transparency and accountability in our systems, that there's no avenue for corruptible practices under this administration. Thank you.
So we continue with the questions.
Hold on. So when you ask question at the press conference, I think you do so because you want answer. But Trokon, who asked the question, you don't know. So if Trokon were listening well, our issue with Flaming Fire and their radio station is not about, basically about wanting to kill people. But he's also not right when he says there's no law on the books on how witches or whatever, which is not basically of the concern. But if I told any of you here that if you do this, you will die, and you walk from here and go to your house and you die, am I not subject to questioning? I say you die, and you go when you die. Whether you call it wish or you call it magic, I made a vow that you will die because of doing X, Y, Z. And if you leave and die after my comment to you in that regard, I can be questioned. But that's not even our issue. The issue is, beyond the church, they run a radio station. To run a radio station in Liberia, you must have a permit from the Ministry of Information. I have a copy of the permit to the church for the radio station. There are two important comments on all of our permits that I want to bring to your attention. It says, the first one is, you are advised to remain within the scope of your stated objective of providing quality and educated religious program to the public. Because I want to say they will do. The second most important statement we come to the conclusion is, this permit will be withdrawn for any ethical breach. How do you spread the gospel of Jesus Christ by telling people they will get back because they're talking about you? That's not what we gave the permit for. And because we let to give people the chance to remake themselves, so we can come and talk about our concerns. And if you are a church leader and the government calls you for a discussion and you say no, if you have a church you in says people should respect authority. Yes. What kind of bishop you are when you don't want to respect the authority of the Lord? So all we say, if he does not come, we'll not close the church down because it's not a role of the Ministry of Information, but we'll revoke the license to run a radio station. That's what we say. And to be formal with you, Maurice Betty, not just that me as the minister declare my asset, everybody that I require under the law to declare asset within the structure of the Ministry of Information have all met the requirement. He who comes with equity comes with clean hands, and we are leading by example. The last part of the question is
Mr. Minister, my name is David Tabe, and from your deliberation, it is clear that you've done an excellent job. And of all the inadequacies you've mentioned about our educational system, not much is to say about the quality of the textbooks that we use. And textbooks are very pivotal in terms of the standard of education across the world. If you did, madam, are you satisfied with the quality of textbooks we use? They meet international acceptable standards? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Dr. John. My name is Christopher Bestman, and I report for Voice of Liberia. Christopher Bestman, and I report for Voice of Liberia. So I think that you are doing well. With that, I want to know what are some major and biggest challenges facing our education system within our country, and how is the ministry is addressing that. Follow up to that, I want to know how the ministry plans to allocate resources and funding to address these challenges. Lastly, I also want to know what are your short and long-term goals for the education system in Liberia within the next 5 years to come under your leadership, and what strategies will you employ to achieve them? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Andrew B. Wheeler, and I report for Dixon and TV. I do have two concerns, and one goes to Minister Jha and that of Minister Pia. Minister Jha, there is an issue that comes every academic year when the school are about to close in terms of having graduation fees, where school administrators or school don't abide by set amount that will be pronounced by the ministry. And of recent, I follow up, there's a video from your page, the ministry page, announcing $100 USD for private schools and $5,000 for government institutions. What are those mechanisms you have put in place to make sure that schools will adhere to short amount that been mentioned by the ministry? To Minister Pia, you did mention about former government officials who were at the airport last Saturday to receive former President Weah, and two refused to ride the bus that was provided by the airport authority, according to you. Do you care to mention those two individuals? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Jha. My name is Prince Joey, and I report for Smart Radio. I want to know, I follow your recent tour, precisely in the Southeast. So I also want to know, what did you see as a major challenge among the many challenges that were presented to you by the instructor there, and how is the government willing to work with you through your institution? Thank you.
Thank you. We come to the end of the questions. Dr. Jha.
No problem. Thank you. These are insightful questions. And I'm sure our listeners in Radio Land are happy with our press people for asking these pressing questions. David Tape talked about concerns regarding inadequacies around quality of textbooks. Under the IRAS project, textbooks were delivered across the country for 5 subjects for secondary schools in English language arts, biology, chemistry, social studies, and which one? Mathematics. Thank you, team. And unfortunately, as we took a tour around the country, we saw those textbooks still sealed up in schools across the country without being opened, without being utilized. And to your question about meeting international standards, those textbooks do meet international standards. Not only do they meet international standards, there are QR codes in those books that students and instructors just need to scan, and it downloads on their phone. Yeah. So in addition to the physical books that students can hold and utilize, they also can get it digitally. And the access to those books are on the MOE website. What we found was school administrators not opening the books. There were instances, as I reported in the cabinet meeting, a cabinet retreat, that I had to break doors down to get into rooms that were storing these text materials. This is a sad day, and your point, Mr. Tape, is well taken. If we don't have quality instructional materials, what education then are our students receiving? So they are getting up in the morning and going to school. It will be to no avail. And we wonder why their parents, especially in our rural areas, don't want to send them to school. Because if a child goes to school and at the end of the day there's no outcome, why is it encouraging me as a parent to want to send my child to school? So these are some of the challenges that we saw in the field. It's not that instructional materials were not made available. They were made available, but they were not utilized. The few schools that we saw utilizing the text were doing it randomly. Either they bring the textbook into the classroom and use it and not allow the students to take it home, for which that was the intent and purpose. Even the utilization of the QR codes. We had to retrain the school administrators on the use and the availability of that. Christopher Bestman talked about concerns around challenges facing the education system. I think my entire presentation kind of highlighted the various challenges in that regard. And allocation of resources was around the emphasis put on funding and also the emphasis put on the need for more funding and investment in education. So in the government's approach, the Excel project that we're about to complete a submission for is an IDA. And what that is a loan through the World Bank. And what that IDA is going to help the education envelope to be able to expand services for creating excellence in education and learning outcomes. The short-term goal and long-term goal strategies to solve, I think I also highlighted those under what are the implications that we see from the findings in the field. And those implications are why we derived, accountability, monitoring and supervision, issues around, funding and optimizing our investment through donor coordination. Andrew, we had asked questions about the graduation fees and what mechanisms are we putting in place to have schools adhere to the graduation fee policy that we have communicated. Critically enough, this is something that requires study and strengthening. For the public schools, it's easy to regulate. For the private schools, we need a concerted effort in addressing this problem. And in that medium to long-term strategy is what we're looking at now for how we can curb this with the institution of policies and regulations around that, and making sure institutions that are, waking up every second or all over the country, that before they get certification and licensing, there are going to be certain standards that they must meet to charge a certain type of fee. So those are some medium and short-term activities that we are exploring for implementation to handle this. And Prince Dewey from Smart Radio asked questions, stated concerns about major challenges and the government response to the major challenges for the that we saw in the field. Again, I think my presentation captured those major challenges, mostly in the rural areas. Issue of even commuting to school. There are students who are commuting an hour, hour and a half to school. There are students who are, disabled in one shape or form, and they have to commute in deplorable conditions and road conditions. There are issues with sight, and that's why it's important, this activity that our student personnel services minister took on with the Ministry of Health is critically important because some students are in school, they can't see, teachers can't really see. There are other health-related issues that we saw in the field. So some of these agreements and partnerships that we're establishing with partners will help us address some of these in the immediate term and also in the long term. But what I would like to drive home is the message from His Excellency. Liberia is no longer in the space of begging. We will not beg. What we will do is look for partners to work alongside the government. And this government is responsible enough to ensure that it's putting its skin in the game. Meaning, we're not just going to ask partners, help us, but we will come with something on the table and say, here's what we're able to put on. What can you join us and partner with us to do? So you can rest assured, we will deliver for the Liberian people. We have been given a mandate and we cannot let the Liberian people down. Thank you. Thank you.
Before I answer the only question that was referred to me, let me just add that it is a good thing that the Ministry of Public Works, on behalf of the government of Liberia, withdrew the rural use of permit getting to the Western Cluster. I live broadly. Many I use that route every day to come to work and go back home. And the security issue that are being faced by our people by the usage of that road were also felt by me. The trucks, sometimes just over at night, 200 of them on the road. Very reckless, driving, speeding anyhow. So even if you pass the road today, by the next morning you come after the 200 trucks pass through, the road is a mess. And I think the government has acted properly. And our hope is that that action will remain in force because we did it before and it was reissued. As it stands, what those vehicles are doing on the road should be not acceptable to us as a government. And so we're glad that the action is finally taken. One of the places we want to call the attention, particularly the police, also still use heavy container trucks. I know there was a time when the decision was taken that those trucks would only move in the night. Having them move in the day on that kind of road is a problem because if you see the trucks that they are on, they are not really protected. And so if you're moving on such a rocky road with potholes all over the place, the possibility that one of those trucks could just fall on a moving car with people in there is very high. We must act now rather than allow something disastrous to happen before we act. The two officials, we are open and transparent. The two individuals in question are my friends. Abu Kamara, who is a representative, and Sanfogo, who is also a representative. They are two friends of mine. The procedure is when you get there, you get in the bus because they went to the aircraft where the president was disembarking. And the bus was supposed to bring it back. So they rode the bus to go there. And to come back, they couldn't wait for the bus to go for them to start to walk on the tarmac. That is a breach of the requirement for an airport area. And I think we who are leaders, we should always give example that others can follow. If we don't do the right things and we don't follow the law, what do we expect ordinary men to do? Nobody goes and walk into the airspace. That's the reason why they were always putting a car to take you there and taking a car to bring you back. Not to have followed that procedure was wrong.
Minister and Interage, on behalf of the Ministry of Information, Culture, Affairs and Tourism, we like to appreciate you for the update you provided. The media has taken it, the Liberian people have heard you. On behalf of MiCAT, the minister is here. We will properly neutralize the information to tell the Liberian people what the government is doing to address some of the impediments in the academic sector. By tomorrow, media colleagues, the Ministry of Finance will be here to address a special section of the press briefing. And the essence of that special section is to speak to the state of the economy. I'm sure you might want to be here to carry the news, and so we look forward to see you. We have an IT minister who is working in line with the president's vision for the country. So we'd like to commend all of you for coming today. My minister, Mr. Raj, Mr. Minister, Mr. Christopher,